Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game news and game design podcast. We have been out a week, but I still remain Shawn Merwin, and this fine-looking young man here remains Teos Abadia. Teos, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. It was awesome. I got to see my parents in Italy, got to see my daughter in Germany. Both were just amazing, amazing times, and flew back yesterday. Boy, are my arms tired. And I am excited to podcast once more. I think I remember how this is done.
Yeah. It's been a couple weeks. Mike Shea helped us out. And then I had deadlines. And
who's that?
But yeah, exactly. Mike Shehae. I've seen his name spelled so many times wrong.
Slysports.com.
Exactly. I'm sure he was very excited with the World Cup finale.
Yeah.
But I had deadlines coming out of my every orifice. So I'm still trying to clear that. But boy, do we have a show for you, because this is the 300th episode that you and I have done as co-hosts.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Yeah. 300.
That's a lot of years. That's not just a lot of episodes. That's a lot of years. Yeah. And this show has been going for longer than that in different iterations. And I wanted to take a quick recap of how we got to this point.
Yeah, I love it.
So this show started from a podcast called Misdirected Mark. Mm-hmm. And this Misdirected Mark started when podcasts were young. Mm-hmm. And it was actually Chris Sneezak and Mark Napick who created that show to talk about a variety of topics, role-playing game associated. And Chris then went and did they got other shows on their network, including one just solely based in D&D, which was called Down with D&D. Mm-hmm.
As in, like, are you down with D&D? Do you like it?
Yeah, not like down with D&D as it's bad. It's like, are you down with D&D? Mm-hmm. And Chris started that show with a couple other co-hosts, and then he asked me to come on as a co-host a few episodes in, and we did the show for a few years on our own. Chris stepped away from the show, and I did a few episodes with rotating co-hosts, and finally I ran out of juice, and I said, I need help, and Teos is the one who stepped in.
Highest amount.
Yep. And so we did the show as Down with D&D for a few episodes, and then we left the Misdirected Mark Network. We called the show Mastering Dungeons, and here we are, 188 shows into Mastering Dungeons, but 300 shows into Teos and I working together. Yeah. And it's been amazing. It's been awesome.
It's been really fun for me, for sure. I mean, this is a show that I used to listen to. I listened to every single episode, and I loved all those different phases with all the different people who were involved. It's been great to be a part of it. I learned so much because of having to every week think about what is going on in the gaming industry and how to talk about it. And that's one of my favorite parts, other than working with you, obviously, but learning from you. But that idea of having to pull everything together and think about this is really great.
Yeah. So thank you all for your support over the years, whether you have been with us since the beginning or whether you're brand new to the show and this is your first time listening. And we are hopefully going to inform and entertain you as we go. And we're going to start that process by going to our listener corner. People can email us at masteringdnd@gmail.com. They can go to our Patreon Discord. They can go to YouTube, all the social media places. If you see us in person, ask us a question or leave us a comment. And we are going to start with an email from No Rails, Just Tales. I'm running a homebrew campaign with Vecna as the main antagonist. The party has already met a version of him, and they got infected with something like his essence unknowingly. This essence now left the body of the character who carried it and manifests as some kind of its own entity connected to the mind of Vecna. I'm using a suitable CR15 stat block, perfect for a group of 5 or 6 characters about level 10, but I want to add a feature, and now I need to have an eye on balance. This feature will connect 3 creatures around it, the character who it lived in, plus 2 other NPCs who it also inhabited. This is supposed to be kind of a life link visible to everyone with some sort of black inkish tentacle thing connecting them. Whenever the essence of Vecna receives any kind of damage, everyone connected to it makes a saving throw, or it absorbs their hit points to recover from that damage, either half on a save or all on a success. So this means that the characters have to slay those tentacles, disconnecting everyone from the essence first, because it will always heal itself until the connected characters are sucked dry and die. So long story short, what would you do to make sure this relatively mighty feature doesn't overpower the monster too much? Should I get rid of other traits, actions, or features, or should it be fine as it is? I'm currently using the Eldritch Lich stat block from Monstrous Compendium, Volume 1, Spelljammer Creatures. That goes way back. The Monstrous Compendium, that's like 2E stuff right there. Oh, you're muted.
That goes back to when things were available in PDF, Shawn.
Yeah,
how old that is.
I've heard of that. Yeah, this is a great question. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of question where I'm like, if I don't stop myself 3 days later, I have not done any other work and I'm still working on this. And that's how you know that it's a question that I love personally. And I love this question because there are many different answers, and none of them are potentially right or none of them are potentially wrong, depending on how you go about dealing with this concept and how the characters might handle it. So I will say first that actually Mike Shea answered the question too, just in case we got to it during our show. So his answer is in our show notes, but we're gonna let that be for those patron members. You can access our show notes. Teos, did you answer this like immediately when we received it to help the person out?
I think I did, though I don't recall exactly what I said at the time, and maybe I'll say something slightly different. You want me to go first?
Yeah, I want you to go first.
Yeah. So I think what I would have said is something along the lines of, usually when I do this kind of like scheming, dreaming, like I want to do this cool extra thing, right? Because you already have a monster. The monster is basically balanced. And so now you're doing something to it to make it stronger. What do you do, right? So what I use, my first approach is, at a general level, is I think of sort of having safety valves, or I think Mike calls them dials, something that I can turn off and on during the encounter in case it goes poorly. Either it's too easy or it's too hard. In this case, it's likely to be too hard if you're healing this monster that's not supposed to heal all the time. And so some way to allow it to be turned off, right? Like maybe I allow some sort of checks to remove it, or if just a couple of the tentacles are severed, then I decide it ends, right? It can just be thinking through it. You don't have to do actual design because it's your home game, right? Just kind of like, here are the kind of things I might do to shut this off or to strengthen it, right? Like it can create one extra tentacle. You just think through these options, and now you've got some safety valves you can turn on or off during the encounter so that it doesn't just go a certain way, right? Because there's no truth to design. You're experimenting, right? And so that's kind of my first approach. On the specific kind of concept of it, I think it sounds really fun as an idea, to take this, Eldritch Lich stat block, which is pretty fun, and it has some sort of parasitic tentacles to it to begin with, so it kind of fits into that. That sounds pretty good to me. The only thing I'll note here story-wise is it sort of feels to me like this is maybe a fight they would have before actually facing Vecna, right? And so you don't necessarily need it to be that hard, and you want to keep in mind what is Vecna, so that Vecna's not less cool than this, right? If they're going to face Vecna at the end, that this is a fun fight, but doesn't overshadow that. What are you thinking, Shawn?
My first thought would be immediately, okay, let's make this a trait of the monster. So we're going to work in all the numbers. This is the amount of damage that it will do. This is the amount of damage it will be healed, and you can make that a part of your calculation. The problem with a monster like this and a trait like this is that you cannot, as the designer, control the damage that it does to the monster to the characters, right?
Mm.
It's going to scale based on what the players do, right? If the players do 10,000 points of damage, the monster does 10,000 points of damage.
Or absorbs
If
10, right?
well, right. Well, it's doing the damage to someone else.
Because whenever Vecna receives any kind of damage, everyone connected makes a save, and it absorbs their hit points to recover from that damage.
Right. So, in other words, normally when you design a monster, you say this attack does 4d8 plus 4.
Yeah.
This attack does this, or it heals this much damage. When you do this, you cannot control the damage that the monster is going to do to whomever it's connected to. Yeah.
So if it takes 10,000 hit points of damage, it would
it's doing 10,000
hit
points.
Save, and and heals it. Yeah.
So so it can be fun as a game master to put this problem in front of a very powerful optimized party, because it makes them stop in their tracks and realize we can't do what we normally do. So there is a tendency for game masters to want to do this. Yeah. On the game design side, it's super problematic for the reasons I just said. So in that sense, when if you were designing this monster, you would want to put a limit on that damage, put a limit on that healing, to better control the challenge rating, better control the trait. But again, that limits the fun. So you could make it, you could make the connection itself its own creature. That would be a different way of handling it.
So they can defeat that on its own, or
right. You could defeat that on its own. You could work that into the CR rating, but again, it's a question of damage. It's a question of damage thresholds. Yeah. So you could say, the monster can only use its reaction to do this much damage to its connected person. Again, limits it, but at least it better controls it. Or you can make the connection an environmental effect, which is, I think, what we're talking about, or what you were talking about, and sort of what Mike was talking about, where it's something that's separate from the monster completely. So it's impossible to give it a specific challenge rating. And in that case, you have to then look at, if it were a creature, what would its power level be, and how quickly would you need to let the player shut it off?
Yeah.
So,
and that's where those control valves are important, because you just never know, right? I talked about that force field in that one epic where, if you very quickly realize, I got to make a skill check, turn it off, cool. But if your players just insist on, the answer must be to hit it harder, it can take forever and be much harder.
Yeah. And then it becomes a question of, are you just testing your players' patience and intelligence and attention to detail, right? Yeah. If the first time the barbarian rages, runs up and does, at 15th level, 200 points of damage to the monster, and it's also different if they're connected to a PC or an NPC, right? If you're connected to an NPC, you might just say, we liked them, but this is a game. We don't really care about these NPCs. We can always, at 15th level, we can raise dead. Yeah, who cares? But if it's another PC, then you get both the power level involved and the player, the player's desires involved. Yeah. That becomes a whole different thing.
Yeah, if you have Forge of Foes, you could look at it as sort of a monster power edition, like we recommend in that book. And we have a number of examples. You could see there are a few. I think there's a kind of healing version one. It's not at all this powerful, but you could think about that. Or you could look at the 2014 DMG has some ideas of features from various monsters and the equivalent CR cost or not. It's sort of an offensive bump that you do in the calculation of the monster. You could take that into account as well when you're thinking about how to do it. But in those cases, the idea is it enough to bump up CR? This is really strong, so it would definitely bump up CR. And I think that's where it gets into but do you care, right? Like, do you want to do the math of what the impact is, or do you just want to have the ability to kind of choose the path so that in your version of running it at the table, you'll have a good time. And I would probably edge towards that. The designer in me wants to solve it, right? But
right. And it can also be a self-correcting problem if you make it very simple to shut off. If you make it a DC 15 Arcana check to shut off, and it only takes one action, then it's fun in the sense that, the barbarian wins initiative, runs up, does the 200 points of damage. Okay, rogue who's attached by this tentacle, make it a saving throw. Oh, you made it, and you take 100 points of damage. Who's up next? Right?
Yeah.
Then it can be fun to slow down and make the players think. But it really does need to be very simple to turn off if you're going to not make it a factor in the strength of the combat.
The other thing is, don't overlook the story answer, right?
Right.
This all has to do with the story of the campaign. And so maybe the solve should be story-based, right? What is it that unites these NPCs and the things they've done? Is there a secret that binds everything together that could be undone? Could there be an almost deal that you make to get out of this? There could be things like that that might actually be a lot more fun if the fight is already going to be fun and you don't really need more fight angle. Then that kind of story angle might actually be what really kind of hits emotionally.
Yeah. So great question. Thanks for asking. We'll take one more question here from Oz Jeb via our Patreon Discord. I have a question about quest design. I've been playing inventory management in Baldur's Gate. So here comes spoilers for Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm wondering about the scene with the druid and the tiefling child. What is the point of that scene? It just seems cruel and pointless. It shows the conflict between the druids and the tieflings, and it shows that the druid priestess is harsh and merciless and that the tieflings are ungrateful bastards. But it seems like a no-win situation without a chance to de-escalate the conflict. So obviously designing a video game quest and a TTRPG quest is going to be different, but the concept here is really the same. It's someone is devising a story and wanting to represent a situation where the characters have to make a hard choice with perhaps no good outcome. And for some people, those hard choices with no clear win is the root of drama, right? A lot of dark fantasy is you have two bad choices, and how do you deal? And, it's this no-win situation is things we face in our lives. And so some people want to try to distill that down into a piece of entertainment that we can reckon with, that we can understand our own lives through this. The problem is that we do have to make these hard choices in our lives, and they're sometimes they're either very complex or they're not complex at all, but our desires make them complex, right? We know what the correct answer is, but we don't want to do it. But the act of trying to distill these things down to create these dilemmas often create false dilemmas, which is a logical fallacy. So there's the problem of we face these dilemmas and compromises in our lives, and we don't want to see them in our games. We want to go there and be the heroes and see the consequences of right defeating wrong. So the question is, what do you want the players to get out of it, and how do you present that? The first question is, do you present it at all? Do you try to do that? And the second part is, how do you make a dilemma without it being a false dilemma? In a video game, we often have two choices. We can't go outside of those two choices. Whereas in a role-playing game, we do have more options. We do have more choices. So to limit those choices, to tell the rogue or the bard, hey, you know what? You can't make a persuasion check to actually talk this person into doing the right thing. You just can't. Is a detriment to what tabletop role-playing games are.
And I think that what is going on in this scene in that game is the fact that often what video games are doing is making us feel good, right? By presenting interesting choices, but to which we feel there's a satisfying answer. So we feel clever, right? We feel good. It's why so many people like easier puzzles rather than really brutally hard ones, right? You feel good, and so that's rewarding. So a lot of the Baldur's Gate interactions are good. They're more, and I think what's brilliant about them is they're sort of expressing the type of game you want to play and helping that happen, rather than being like logic puzzles or no-win situations. In this case, I think I kind of recall that I could talk them down, but maybe it's really hard. I forget exactly how that works. But that is probably an attempt to say more about the story through those dialogue choices of this is not easily resolvable, and there will be more you'll learn later. So it may be supposed to feel dissatisfying now, so that the later events are being set up around this NPC, around this escalating conflict. And so that's why it's sort of happening. And as you said, Shawn, in role-playing games, you want to be really careful about that, because it's harder players want that agency, right? And they want it to make sense. And if we envision things as almost like dialogue trees, inevitably we're not thinking of what the players will actually want to say and do. And so that, it becomes far more difficult to make it interesting. But the concept, right, of, hey, you're meeting these NPCs, there are these conflicts between groups, something, there's not an easy solve here. That is interesting, right? And it's worth thinking about how you want to portray situations like that when it's going to be fun for the group.
All right, so let's jump into our news and commentary this week, starting with the season of Magic has begun. This new season matches with the upcoming Arcana Unleashed books. We have previously covered that this will include the Arcana Unleashed book itself, which has the player content, a level 11 to 20 adventure called Arcana Unleashed Deadfall, and an Arcana Unleashed map pack. Tell us more about these and when we're going to see them, Teos.
Yeah, so the official release date is September 15th, which kind of coincides with the September release schedule we've seen throughout most of the years with D&D. Early access via pre-order at local gaming stores or on D&D Beyond is September 1, so you can go to your local gaming store and you'll get it 2 weeks early. The D&D Encounters celebration event will be September 4th to 13th or 18th to 27th. If you heard our previous shows, sort of depends on whether the store has early access or not. And then that dictates the various dates and they can run it. So you're either looking at, those kinds of date ranges based on that. Go to your local store, check in, say, hey, when are you running D&D Encounters celebration? When are you running the weekly play? The D&D Encounters weekly play is going to start around September 9th or around September 23rd, again, depending on whether the show has early access. The adventure for D&D Encounters, Shawn, is called Red Wizard's Gambit. Is this news to you?
This is not news to me, since cool. I have, in fact, had a good deal of experience with it so far, including some playtesting. So this will feature an adventure for level 3 characters. That's the celebration event. And then you will advance to level 4 when you start weekly play, and then level 5 over the course of the 4 weekly play sessions.
I got a question for you. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, because maybe it gets into the design of it. But some of the play reports I heard from the previous one was, this was pretty hard, but maybe that's great because it was unearthed or because it was Ravenloft themed.
Season 4.
So getting hurt a bit might be a great idea for Ravenloft, having some deaths, having some Were Raven action, all that sort of stuff. But I also thought to myself, well, the new 2024 guidelines sort of make encounters very hard. And so that can kind of happen just by the book. Like, this is D&D, right. Do you, when you're thinking about a D&D Encounters adventure that's going to be like this, not Ravenloft season, do you think to yourself, maybe I want to tone it lower than encounter building guidelines would say? Or would you go, man, these are the rules, we got to use the rules?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of the situation. One of the reasons that the Season of Horror celebration adventure was difficult is because some game masters were getting a rule wrong. And that's a my bad for not actually putting that rule in there. But they were using dark vision incorrectly, or magical darkness incorrectly. So they were running it as if dark vision could not pierce magical darkness when it actually can, unless the magical darkness specifically says it blocks dark vision. So there were a few cases where that was the main battle. When I play tested it, it was difficult. It was difficult. The players persevered. They were experienced players, but they were still using pre-gens. So it wasn't like they could build an optimized character for the playtest. I did tone it back from the playtest a little bit, but I also wanted, to get that feel of, this is Ravenloft. You are coming in, and there was also feedback saying, this isn't for new players, right? This isn't an introduction to D&D. And I'm like, damn right it's not. Right. And that's what this Encounters program is not an introduction for new players, right? It is a preview of the current book that is being released.
Right.
And to show that, what's in that book. And I hope I showed what's in that book.
Awesome. Yeah. You want that taste. And so speaking of kind of what's in the kit, so you're going to be it's for level 3 characters. They'll advance to levels 4 and 5 over the course of the 4 weekly play sessions. And the physical kit will now include 25 promo D20s as a participation award, replacing the cool folders they got from season 1. And pre-generated level 4 and 5 characters will be available for download. We've got both the D&D website, dungeonsanddragons.com, and ICV2 articles linked to that. And if you're curious about what's in Arcana Unleashed, you can take a look at a recent D&D Beyond article that had 9 new backgrounds and origin feats, so you can get a taste of what's in there through the D&D Beyond link in our show notes, or check out those sites.
Yep. And we also have news about what Wizards is doing at Gen Con. Gen Con is just a couple weeks away as we record this. And D&D has been promoting their presence at the D&D Tower. The D&D Tower is about a block or 2 away from the main convention center in a theater, the Indiana Repository Theater, I think is what it's called. And they took over the entire building. There are several levels, Jerry, of this theater. And throughout it, there are going to be different events, different things you can do, different shows you can watch, including, Teos, a D&D keynote address. What's going on with that?
Well, we hear that Baldur's Gate 3's Theo Solomon will host this event, and there are going to be future roadmap release reveals. We were told earlier, the Season of Champions will be announced, so that's cool, but also stuff for next year. So we're going to get I think a lot of excitement brought in here, which made me think a lot of, like the excitement at last year's Gen Con, where sort of like Daggerheart felt like it had more announcements. I wonder if that's at all part of the factor in this. Probably not, but maybe it's sort of more like that, where you're going to be like a little bit on the edge of your seat with the interest, and maybe a lot of conversations coming forward. Like they've said things like, do you want to hear about this online, or do you want to be here in person when we announce these big things? So they see it. Wizard sees this as big news. Some first looks at things and more. So you can expect that sort of like, screenshots, art, things like that. Floors 1 and 2 of this tower are the main stage. There'll be merch areas, talent signings, a 20-sided tavern, and most of the concerts, actual plays, and keynote will take place there. Then on floor 3, you have Dungeon Dare, Web of the Red Wizards. Floor 4 is D&D Talks with staff, and there've been a number announced where cool staff are talking and sharing insights into things that are coming. The actual play amphitheater, I think for the smaller actual plays is there. I'm not sure kind of how that differs from the main stage. Floor 5 has DM University, so that's a licensed partner that's talked their way into occupying a whole space. And then floor 6, D&D Carnival. This is on Friday and Saturday. You have tests, prizes, Taroka readings, things like that. Wander around and experience these different things that are there. Very cool. So, I think D&D is trying to make a big splash here, right? Back to Gen Con with a big splash, and the idea of you wanting to spend a lot of time here, which is interesting. So it'll be cool to see how that plays out.
Yeah, if you're going to be, so I'm not going to be there. I don't think Teos is going to
No.
be there. So if you are listening to the show and you are going to be there, after you experience it, or heck, while you're experiencing it,
Yeah.
reach out to us. Let us know what's going on. Let us know, what the vibes are. Let us know how you feel. Was it fun? Was it weird? Was it cool? Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
We also have more news from the Dungeon Masters actual play season. Here's what we know. Our heroes, magical agents of the Order of the Ninth Quill, are hurled into the lethal expanse of the Anorak Desert, a shattered wasteland still radiating the catastrophic magic of Netheryl's fall. A fragile, shimmering barrier is all that stands between Faerun and the arcane horrors buried beneath the dunes. And this safeguard is failing. The cast is the same, but they're playing new characters from the upcoming book. Episodes 1 and 2 have already released, and then there is an abridged version of episode 1. It already has 1 million views in 11 days.
Yeah.
Everyone who I've talked to who's watched this show has raved about it.
This just the actual play in general, or this season?
In general.
Cool. Yeah.
And these are a lot of folks who like couldn't get into Critical Role.
Oh.
It was too long. It was too complex. It didn't get to the gist of what they wanted to see. People that I thought they would never watch an actual play have watched it, and they're like, I love it. I love it. I can't wait for the new season. I'm like, cool. That's great.
Yeah. I haven't watched the new season yet because of my travels, but the previous one was very enjoyable. I found the cast was great. They're playing their new characters in this one, but the old characters were quite interesting. Neil was fantastic, but really everybody was fun in different ways with the way they played their characters and the way Jasmine ran that story. Would love to have Jasmine on the show to talk to her about kind of how she orchestrates that, because she does a lot to set the tone, and yeah, I find it very fun, and I love that the episodes are short. It's interesting, this new abridged version for episode 1 is another interesting idea to edit it down even further, right? So I'm curious how well received that will be. The 1 million views was for I think the general episode 1 and 2 video, because I think the abridged came out pretty recently. But yeah, 1 million views is a little down. I think the previous one had 2 million around this time, but that's normal that people are checking out something new. But hopefully this builds some energy, because I think it has been a pretty good show. I don't think it's awesome at explaining what D&D is for new players. They do a lot of dramatic stuff that you really actually want to be careful with. Rob players of agency and suddenly reveal their backstory, or have an NPC spill the beans on what someone else knows or what their character's about. But that's obviously something they've all talked about, and no one's explaining that to a new viewer, right? But
yeah. We also got the play along pack for this new Dungeon Masters actual or live play. The first one is free, and claiming it unlocks the following: 6 living spell stat blocks. We get living flaming sphere, living acid arrow, living gust of wind, living shatter, living burning hands, and living chromatic orb, all of them being CR1.
Shawn, I like these. They have a kind of, I do a magic-y attack, and then I do a version of this spell, but it's a CR1 version. So whether it's, shatter or whatever, it's like, it's all toned to CR1, but it has a nice feeling where you go like, yeah, I can see how that's gust of wind, right? But I'm still making it effective for a monster. I liked the approach of these, the design of these. No idea if you did it.
Yeah, I've seen some other ones that have a similar approach, and they all seem very thematic and cool in all the ways. They're fun, they're flavorful, and they're balanced well for what they do. We also get the new Evoker Archmage stat block, which is CR15 and can sculpt spells so as not to affect allies. The Agent of the Ninth Quill character background, a Arcane Infiltrator origin feat, where you learn the Friends cantrip, can take the dodge action as a bonus action, a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain that on a long rest. What else do we have here?
There's a magic item that is evolving magic items. They're kind of introducing the latest iteration of that in Arcana Unleashed. So the Idol of Good Fortunes is something you can take a look at, where each rarity provides different benefits. For example, the uncommon version lets you cast Augury. The rare version gives you a +1 AC, and you can turn things like trade bars or gems into the equivalent number of coins due to their value. Which, cool. Like, that's fun. Mm-hmm.
We have the 9th Quill faction information, including a Bastion and Renown rewards.
Yeah.
And what about the encounter?
So it's a living spells encounter for level 6 characters. They are agents of the 9th Quill faction. They've infiltrated an Evoker Archmage's workshop in pursuit of an evolving magic item, the Idol of Good Fortunes. And there are 6 living spell stat blocks that we talked about. Those are used in this encounter as a sort of random thing that can coalesce and attack the party. And after this, all of that was included for free, right? So you can get all these things, no reason not to. We've got a link in our show notes for that claim link. But beyond that, you have to have pre-ordered to get the things. And the things so far have been, these are encounters now. Transmuter Archmage, a level 6 encounter. They search a ruined expedition camp. Farum hatchlings are being summoned by a ritual that's in place. So you have to deal with that ritual and the hatchlings. And then the third play along pack is Darken Beast, a level 7 encounter. You must sabotage a remote desert encampment facing mage apprentices and a Darken Beast. Cool stuff. I liked all of these. And it really gives you that feel of, okay, it's very Anarok, very desert, very ancient Netheril, right? Farum and things like that. So if those wards are failing, we can see what they're doing lore-wise there. If you're familiar with the with the Forgotten Realms lore, you can see what's going on here.
Yeah. And as a reminder, the adventure that goes along with these monsters is for levels 11 to 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can see right now that the 2 drops were 6 and 7, or the 2 packs were 6 and 7, which, there wasn't a level 1 and level 2 to show off the new monsters there, which should tell you a little bit about what we've got coming in that.
Love it.
We have news about Sirius Dice because they're expanding to cover Daggerheart. This ICV2 report says that Sirius, the company providing blind collectible dice packs for D&D, are now providing Daggerheart treasure packs starting in October. Each pack will have 2 oversized D12 dice as their hope and fear dice for Daggerheart. The packs will also contain 2 acrylic Trat stacking token sheets to help players keep track of their hope, fear, stress, armor, health, and so on. The set has core, rare, and ultra chase dice designed to search for in packs. Packs come in at $13 each.
Yeah, and it's easy to sort of feel like these things are a little dumb. Like, do I really want to waste my money on whether I like these dice or not? But the best place to get these is through Baldman Games, I think, because what they do is very cool. If you go to one of the shows that has D&D at it, Winter Fantasy, Gen Con, things like that, Baldman Games sells these, and they open a few packs and put them out there. So then when you buy a pack, worst case, you get one of the ones you can trade for one of the ones that they've opened up, which is a really neat way to do that. And that way you're not going to just kind of wah, right? Like you can see, all right, would I be happy with one of these 3 that's out there? Okay. And the way Sirius Dice does this, they'll have like a token in there for, your barbarian rage or whatever. And in this case, they're going to have something for like your armor or stress tracking. That's kind of a fun way to do it, right? So there's a little extra something in there that if you buy a bunch of them, and, you don't need all those dice, obviously, but you're getting something else for it. I still find this to be not the kind of product that's for me, but boy, I hear these sell really well. And so expanding to Daggerheart is both a sign of Sirius being in a strong position and seeing Daggerheart as being a good place to be in.
Yep. Speaking of a good and bad place to be in, we have good and bad Pathfinder news coming from. I'll give you the good news and I'll let Teos give the bad news. The good news is the Seattle Mariners baseball team announced Operation Salmon Run Day, where baseball fans can claim a 7-piece dice set. $5 of every ticket sold raises money for gamers engaged with their mission to build community through gaming. And that's great. A Major League Baseball team having a Pathfinder night.
Yeah. And this is the second RPG night we've seen from Major League Baseball. Very cool. Smart of, I wonder if sort of Paizo people saw that and started working with the local team to do that. Very neat idea. It's interesting because it's around an adventure, but I couldn't find any evidence that the adventure itself was being given out, but maybe that is given out too. I don't know. But yeah, big custom dice. Pretty cool. On the not so great side, Shawn, the community site Archives of Nethys announced that Paizo has pulled their license, citing a low return on investment and possibly about confusion over art assets and what's official or not. This site had been serving as a reference for all of Paizo's game systems, so fans could come there and see, what the games, the various games, including like Starfinder, everything that's about them. And the company had been, the group Archive of Nethys had not been making any real money, so there was no money to pass on to Paizo, right? But also they were doing things like, using art assets and so on that were provided. They would get the books in advance from Paizo. And we recently talked about how Paizo's had some very tough times through the whole distribution problem. So it looks like Paizo made that decision of, here's another cost and another set of things we don't particularly like how it's going on. So we're terminating this license. And so at the end of this month, it all ends. And the site is now going through trying to remove everything that is official. Paizo encouraged them to use the community use policy, which they'll try to do, but they'll no longer be able to do the same timeliness because they're not getting those early books and all of that. And so it's just something to keep in mind and keep a watch on, because a lot of times people will blame Wizards as the only company that does things like this. But a number of RPG companies have to find themselves in these tough situations. And, are they handling it well or not? It's always hard to say, right? But yeah, it's difficult.
Not hard to say is that Cosmere is posting job listings. Brotherwise Games has announced that they are looking to fill 2 positions. One is a core design team member. This for remuneration. What they pay. Their writing starts at 12 to 18 cents a word based on qualifications, or you have the option to charge $25 an hour for the writing. You will also get $25 an hour for meetings and team playtests with a possible 10% performance-based bonus. This is a part-time position, assumed to be about 10 to 20 hours per week. There's also the open call for freelance narrative writers. These will be 1,000 to 6,000 word assignments during a 6-week writing phase, 4 for writing the outline and draft, and then 2 weeks for revision. Writing will start at, again, 12 to 18 cents a word based on experience and Cosmere knowledge. And then meetings and play tests will be $25 an hour. We have a link in our show notes to all of those positions.
Yeah, and on our Discord, some folks who are involved with Cosmere have been saying, if you have any questions, ask away. So if you're a member of our Discord and you're interested, make sure you're on the Discord and you can get some questions answered there. In the past, Brotherwise has gotten some pressure for these word rates being a little low, especially I think they were lower before because they did raise a lot of money. But, so be that as it may, at the end of the day, it's whether this works for you or not. And I am glad to see that they're fully explaining what the rates are and how they pay and so on. That's good to see.
Yep. And then we have a note on NPC note design. On phd20.com, there was a useful blog providing an approach to describing NPCs in your DM notes. What did this cover, Teos?
Yeah, so Kirk Weib, the author, sorry, Kirk, let us know how I say your last name. But Kirk notes that using the full list of details prescribed by the DMG results in many things to track. You've got all these different factors to the NPC. So instead, he suggests for your home game to use the following approach. And it's 3 things. Use bold text for automatic and free information about an NPC. And he says, quote, think first impressions, reputation, appearance, reaction, behavior, quirks, sounds, smells. What are the things that demand attention? So Atticus Longheart is a bold, famed adventurer known for his eye patch, jeweled saber, and trench coat. He's bold, immediately friendly by default. And then use bullets for information the PCs can learn. So below that, you would put in bullets: leader of the Adventurers Guild, knows a rare sword fighting technique, a true showman. Last, use italics for secrets. He's a sword mage. He's been inside the Dreadmount. And this makes a lot more sense if you look at it and sort of see visually what he's doing, because the idea is use this approach for your DM notes that you're going to use at the table. But it's neat. It's a very simple short read, and makes a lot of sense to have this kind of approach for something like NPCs. I dig it a lot.
Yeah. To be very, very, very clear, this is about your own NPC notes for your own home games.
Yeah.
I love this idea. And if we tried to do that in publishing, we would end up with 7,000 page adventures. So it's a good shorthand for your own use. So check that out.
Yeah, love it.
Finally, let's go to our creator corner here. We're going to start with Thrones and Bones Bundle. Friend of the show, Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studio, have deep discounts on beyondthebundle.com. Inspired by Norse myth and Scandinavian folklore, you can get the Norengard setting books and adventures at a great price. This will be available through July 31st with a link in our show notes to beyondthebundle.com. What's the second one, Teos?
Scipio, who helps us with those Hasbro quarterly reports, has finally put up a blog. You might have seen he had some guest posts on the Patchwork Paladin blog analyzing Kickstarter tier levels. So you might be familiar with his awesome writing. And so his blog, Sifting from the Stream of Knowledge, has a number of posts there, including a D10 list of travelers you might find on the road, thoughts on must-dos when creating RPG material, and much more to come. So that's scipio202.bearblog.dev/blog.
All right. Well, that was our news segment here on Mastering Dungeons. Hang in there for part 2, where we're going to talk about world building via campaign building.